Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into the mucky alleys and smoke-filled huts of a medieval village where the wells are poisoned. The pigs roam free and nearly everyone, including children, is mildly buzzed by noon. Why? Because water is basically a death sentence and ale is safer. Safer-ish. You're not a knight. You're not a monk. You're certainly not royalty. You're just you. Ordinary, slightly damp, maybe a bit itchy. But tonight, things are about to get very slightly worse. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know your location and the local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge down the muddy path toward the heart of the village. It's barely dawn and already the smells are aggressive: wood smoke, wet hay, and something vaguely acidic that may or may not be coming from the tanner's ditch. You hear chickens squabbling somewhere behind a crumbling wattle fence, and a dog limps past you, proudly dragging what looks like half a boot. The village is stirring. People are unlatching doors, grumbling awake, shaking sleep and fleas from their cloaks. Somewhere in the distance a bell clangs half-heartedly, perhaps to mark the hour, or perhaps because some child is hitting it for fun. No one really knows anymore. You make your way toward the center square where a few stalls are already setting up for the day's modest trade. Turnips, thread, an alarming amount of eels. It's cold, your boots are wet and your mouth is dry. You want something to drink, but not water, heavens no. You've seen what water does. Last winter, the Cooper family drank from the stream and ended up with faces the color of radishes and other symptoms we don't need to list before bed. So you head for the communal ale barrel. It sits like a greasy little treasure in the back corner of the square, a crude tap hammered into the side. The ale's dark, cloudy, and sour smelling, but it's familiar. And more importantly, it hasn't killed you yet. You tip your wooden mug forward. Oi, someone shouts. You freeze. It's the Reeve. The village Reeve, a man who permanently smells like dried onions and rules this place with all the enthusiasm of a tired librarian. He waves you over with one thick, impatient hand. Got a job for you? He grunts. Ale taster. Old Giles choked on a pickle and died. You're up. That's it. That's your promotion. One moment you're sipping breakfast beer like a responsible peasant, and the next you're the official ale taster. You nod because you don't really know what else to do, and he shoves a wooden badge into your hand. It's slightly damp. Your responsibilities, he explains, are simple. Taste every batch of ale sold in the village, every last one. Judge the quality. Enforce the assize. Report any brewer selling weak or dangerous drink. Easy, right? He leaves out a few details, like how many brewers there are, like how quickly they brew, like how much ale you'll be drinking, also how much bad ale you'll be drinking. The badge smells faintly of turnip. And just like that, your day takes a turn. By mid-morning, you're standing inside the low, smoky cottage of Agnes, one of the town's more enthusiastic alewives. She grins at you like a wolf in an apron, her arms already dusted with flour, her hair tucked beneath a scarf that looks like it's seen at least 3 plagues. New taster, eh? She purrs. Fancy a sip? You don't. But you must. The ale is warm, very warm, and weirdly chewy. You swallow and your tongue tries to crawl backward out of your mouth. Agnes watches your reaction with great interest. This is your first real test and you're not entirely sure what you're looking for. It's beer. It's supposed to be gross, isn't it? Historians still argue whether most medieval ale was truly delicious or if everyone's standards were just profoundly lower. Some say good batches tasted nutty and fresh. Others argue they were mostly lukewarm sludge spiked with whatever herbs people hadn't used as medicine yet. You scribble something vague onto your slate, acceptable. Could use less texture. And step back outside the taste, still clinging to your teeth like regret. Later, you pass by the church. The priest nods politely. He knows what your new job is, and he gives you the look of someone who both envies and pities you. After all, your duty is technically holy. Ale was seen as a godly beverage safer than water, part of the divine order of things. But also, you're going to be buzzed at every village meeting for the foreseeable future, and possibly bloated. A child runs past you chasing a goose. The goose does not seem happy about this arrangement. Your thoughts drift to Giles, your predecessor. You realize you didn't even know he'd died until the reeve told you. Just another casualty of medieval odd jobs. There were many, of course. You've heard of some of them: leech collectors, sin-eaters, night soil men. But ale taster, somehow this one feels more personal. You're not just scraping waste or warding off ghosts. You're drinking, constantly, critically. There's honor in it, perhaps. Or a slow, fermented spiral into irreversible gut rot. Only time will tell. The day drags on. You visit 2 more brewers. One of them, Big Martin, makes a surprisingly pleasant golden ale that actually smells like bread. The other brews a mixture so sour your eyebrows twitch. The sun sinks low. You've had 5 mugs of varying quality a headache and at least one fleeting vision of a dancing chicken. You are officially the town ale taster. You might survive this. Then again, you probably won't. Your second day begins not with a rooster, but with someone yelling outside your door that another batch is ready. It's barely light. Your knees ache. You fell asleep in your boots. Again, you shuffle upright and remember, yes, you're still the official ale taster. This wasn't some strange barley-scented dream. That badge the reeve gave you is still there, now lightly stuck to your tunic with what you hope is dry ale. Today, you are summoned to the home of Widow Peg, a brewer whose reputation for producing extremely strong ale is only rivaled by her reputation for throwing shoes at people who complain about it. You are both curious and afraid. Her home smells like toasted grain and something else herbs. No, that's marjoram, maybe. Or nettle, or moss. Her brewing method, you're told, is experimental. She gives you a small, heavy cup. You take a careful sip. Instant regret. The ale is sweet, sharp, and oddly peppery. You blink. Widow Peg squints at you with the gaze of someone who has absolutely poisoned a rat before and would do it again. You cough politely and scribble your notes. Unusual finish. Possibly cursed. Check herb legality. She nods with grim approval. Better than the last taster, she mutters. You don't ask what happened to the last one. By late morning, you start to feel the effects of the job. Not just the ale, which is slowly turning your stomach into a small churning cauldron, but the sheer pace of it. See, the job isn't ceremonial. The Assize of Ale, an actual real law passed in 1267 under King Henry III, requires that every batch of ale be tested and approved for both price and quality. Yes, medieval England had a legal framework to prevent weak beer and unfair pricing. There were punishments for overcharging and brewing corrupt ale, including public shaming and fines. In extreme cases, a faulty alewife could be thrown into the ducking stool, a humiliating dunk in a nearby pond. You're now the front line in this frothy war on mediocrity. You begin carrying your testing tools, a shallow wooden bowl for color clarity, a marked rod to measure foam depth, and a little knife to stir and assess sediment consistency, which is just a very official way of saying gloop checker. As you step into brewer number 3's hut, old Roger, who's half deaf and brews in total silence, you start to recognize the smells. The sweet tang of fermenting grain, the weirdly metallic edge of certain hops, the unmistakable stench of something having gone wrong. You sniff Roger's offering. It smells like feet and betrayal. Strong batch today, he says proudly, completely misinterpreting your face. You drink, because you must. It tastes like a betrayal in the feet. You scribble your verdict unfit. Smells like haunted cheese, and shuffle outside. On the way to your next assignment, you run into a friend, or rather someone who has now decided they're your friend, probably because you now wield tremendous social power over the beverage economy. It's Tom, the town's part-time thatcher and full-time gossip. He grins wide when he sees you. "So what's the best ale in town?" he asks, nudging you like you've joined a secret society. You answer honestly, "None that don't hurt me." He laughs. That's how you know it's working. The two of you walk a bit together, and Tom shares what you quickly realize is the real power of your new job, not just tasting, but talking. Your opinions spread. You say Peg's ale was sharp, and suddenly half the town wants to try it. You say Roger's ale was unsettling, and now folks are whispering that his brew turns you blind. Tom tells you about ale-soaked festivals, ale-fueled brawls, and a brewer who once tried to mix his product with honey to disguise contamination. Didn't work. Tom shrugs. Killed a goat. Just one, though. Historians still argue whether medieval ale was truly safer than water or if it was simply the lesser evil. The alcohol content was low, around 2–3%, but that was enough to kill off many waterborne pathogens. Or so they say. It's also possible the ale just kept people buzzed enough to not notice how sick they felt. By the time you arrive at your next brewer, your legs are wobbly and your stomach is full. This one is new, a young woman named Edith, who greets you with a nervous smile and offers a mug with trembling hands. You ask a few questions about her brewing method. She stammers about boiling times, mash temperature, and using a borrowed yeast from a neighbor. You take a sip. It's fine. A miracle. You take another sip to confirm. Still fine. Balanced. Toasty. Mild bitterness. No insects. You smile. Good job. Edith nearly faints with relief. You walk out feeling like a hero. As the sun begins to dip again, the Reeve finds you sitting on a barrel trying not to burp too loudly. He checks your notes and raises an eyebrow. "Not bad," he mutters. "You write like a monk. Smell like a tavern." You nod. He hands you a small pouch. Your pay. A few coins and rather ominously a sprig of lavender. Helps the belly, he explains, or so they say. You trudge home in the dim light, the smell of smoke and baked grain trailing behind you. Your boots squish with ale. Your thoughts slosh like soup. Your job is strange, important, disgusting, and apparently not optional. Tomorrow, more barrels will be ready. You groan softly. The geese honk in the distance. Morning number 3 starts not with a bell or a knock, but with your own stomach making a long, sorrowful sound like a dying bagpipe. You sit up slowly. You ache, all over. Your tongue feels like it's been used to scrub a wooden bowl, and your breath could probably strip paint. The ale badge still stuck to your tunic is now slightly warped from sweat and possibly tears. You consider not going, just pretending to be dead. You lie very still, but then inevitably comes the banging. More brews and someone shouts from outside. You've got 6 to taste before midday. You consider yelling back that you've tragically perished in the night. But the reeve does not take kindly to sarcasm. And the villagers, they'll just assume you're hungover, which is both true and insulting. You rise, slowly. Your first visit is to a woman named Joan who runs her alehouse out of the back of a slaughterhouse. Already your stomach regrets everything about today. The air inside is a mixture of blood grain and wet dog. Joan hands you a mug with a proud grin and absolutely no explanation. The ale is dark. Very dark. Suspiciously dark. You sip. It tastes like copper and cloves with a lingering hint of despair. You cough gently. Joan beams. Goes down smooth, don't it? You look her in the eye. It goes somewhere you say diplomatically, scribbling, interesting finish. Possible anemia onto your slate. As you exit, your path is blocked by 2 men arguing. You catch snippets. He watered it down. It tasted fine yesterday. Your dog wouldn't drink that swill. They see you and immediately turn. There he is, asks the taster. Suddenly you are judge, jury, and stomachache. The men thrust 2 mugs at you. You taste both one after the other. One is vaguely earthy with a hint of cabbage. The other tastes like damp hay and regret. They're both awful, you say. Stop selling them, or at least sell them with a warning label. They don't know what a warning label is, but they get the idea. You begin to understand something fundamental about your job. It's not about drinking. It's about not dying. The people in this village trust ale more than water, more than soup, more than the occasional questionable cider some farmer's cousin tries to sell in the fall. If you mess up, if you approve a bad batch, someone could get sick, or worse. So you keep tasting, even when your hands shake, even when your tongue threatens mutiny. Historians still argue whether ale tasters were genuinely respected public figures or simply unlucky drunks with a clipboard. You suspect the truth is somewhere in between. At brewer number 3's hut, a bent old man named Hob, you find something new, a chalk mark over the door. What's that, you ask? Blessing, he grunts. Keeps the evil out of the barrel. He's serious. There's a whole ritual to his process. He brews only on full moons, uses only water from a particular well, and insists his barrels must be stirred counterclockwise while singing a song about Saint Beryl, patron of drunkards. You take a sip of his ale. It's actually very good. Malty, nutty, almost clean. You glance at the chalk mark. Maybe St. Beryl's doing something after all. You write a glowing review. Hob weeps quietly and offers you a half loaf of rye bread and a boiled egg. You accept. It's the best thing you've eaten in days. The next house is less heartwarming. A young brewer, too eager, too confident, presents you with a frothy mug and a speech about how he's redefining the taste of tradition. You taste it. It's not ale. It's disaster with bubbles. It fizzes like it's fermenting again in your mouth. You grimace. What did you put in this? Dandelion. Raw peas. A touch of soot. Soot. He nods proudly. For the color, you write unholy. Might be super, strong notes of chimney. He seems unbothered. It's ahead of its time. Yes, you agree. And it can stay there. Midday hits and you're dizzy. You sit on a step and try to remember your own name. You're vaguely aware of the sun moving, people shouting, someone chasing a duck with a ladle. Your life is now measured in sips. You think back to your first day, to Agnes and her pepper ale, to Roger and his ghost feet brew, to Widow Peg whose concoctions might actually be spells. You wonder if Giles, your predecessor, left a journal, a survival guide, a will. Instead, you get a visit from the parish priest. He eyes you sternly. We need to talk. You expect judgment, condemnation, a lengthy sermon about gluttony and moderation. Instead, he sighs and says, "The last batch we served at the festival, weak, barely made my nephew giggle." You blink. "I need a stronger ale for Easter," he adds. "Find me something good." You stare. You do realize, you say slowly, that this is not a catering service. He shrugs. "You're the expert now." You nod, sigh, and make a note. Find 1-1 priest-pleasing ale. Strong, not too foamy. The burden of power is real. Your final stop of the day is at a cottage that's been closed for months. A new sign has appeared, returning soon. Fresh batch. Better than ever. You knock. The door creaks open. Inside stands a woman in green, her hair tied with twine, and her arms streaked with dried mash. "You're early," she says, not unkindly. "Come taste." You're too tired to argue. You take the mug, sip, and blink. It's perfect. Crisp, balanced, light honey aftertaste. You look up. She smiles. "Told you, better than ever." You nod slowly. "This might actually save my life." She winks, or end it, hard to say. And with that comforting thought, you stumble home. You awaken before the sun, already dreading the day ahead. Your mouth is dry, your knees ache again, and your liver is beginning to file quiet complaints with your spine. The badge digs into your chest as you sit up. It's now stuck to you with something viscous. Probably ale. Possibly regret. There's no knocking this morning, only silence. But you know the drill. The brewers don't wait. They brew. They pour. And they expect you to show up, scribble your judgments, and declare them either noble crafters or public menaces. You pull on your boots, which squelch faintly. At this point, you suspect you might actually be fermenting. Your first stop is a tiny, crooked cottage on the far side of the village. You've never been here before, and for good reason. It belongs to Enid, the brewer, who lives with exactly 13 cats and a goose with a limp. The air inside her home is thick clove fur, something sharp and musty. She greets you without words, handing you a mug that smells like tree bark and fennel. There's something floating in it. You stare at it. It stares back. You drink. It's earthy. Very earthy. You're chewing more than sipping. You set the mug down and blink away the flavor. Enid nods, satisfied. Left the barley in the thatch for 3 days. Adds personality. You scribble woodsy, possibly moss-based. Strong personality, slightly hostile. She's thrilled. The goose honks at you as you leave. Your second stop is a repeat Martin the malter. You liked his ale the first time, mild, biscuity, no adverse effects. He beams as you walk in, holding a new batch with both hands, like it's a newborn child. You sip. It's different, sharper, but still decent. He looks nervous. Used a new malt, he says. Imported. From 2 villages over. You arch an eyebrow. Imported, dangerous word. Historians still argue whether medieval trade improved quality or just created fancier disasters. Imported hops, unknown water sources, different drying methods, each could change everything. You nod. Not bad. Bit spicy. He exhales in relief and hands you a roll of fresh bread. You nearly cry. Then comes trouble. Brewer number 3 isn't home, but his teenage son is, and the boy insists on giving you a taste of his own invention. The mug he hands you is bubbling. That's not good. It smells like burnt turnips and raw onion. That's worse. You sip. It's... actually... No, it's awful. It gets worse the longer it sits on your tongue. It tingles, and not in a pleasant way. You feel a strange pressure behind your eyes. What's in this? Barley. Honey. Mud. Just a little. Mud. He nods enthusiastically. I read about it in a poem. You scribble, regrettable. Poetic only in the tragic sense. By midday the sun is high, the flies are braver, and you're sweating through your tunic. You take refuge behind the stables where the smell of horses is somehow less offensive than half the brews you've tasted. That's when you notice your size measure your trusty wooden rod for testing foam has warped. Too much exposure. Or maybe it's just tired like you. You try to remember what the ideal foam height is supposed to be. 4 fingers. 3. There were rules once. You think. You dig out the scribbled note from your first day. Yes, 3 fingers worth of foam minimum. Any less watered down. Any more overcarbonated, which is fancy speak for, might explode. You sigh and lean back against the wall. Next stop, a brewer working out of an old pigsty. Charming. You climb over the half door and find barrels stacked beside empty feed troughs. The brewer, a lean man with soot under his nails, greets you with a nod and hands you a wooden cup. You sip. It's surprisingly good. Crisp, clean, even a touch fruity. You look around. You made this here. He nods. Pigs are gone. Space is space. You shrug. Fair enough. He beams as you write, surprisingly palatable. Subtle aftertaste of hay. Good. You never thought the phrase tasted good for a pigsty would apply to your life. But here we are. Then something new, a challenge. A burly man named Teb insists his ale is so strong even the reeve can't finish a mug. You raise an eyebrow. He pours you a cup. You take a sip. Your vision vibrates slightly. The taste is smoky and warm and immediately punches you in the throat. You cough once, twice. He grins. You raise a hand for a moment, then lower it and take another sip. Not because you want to, because pride. He slaps you on the back. Knew you had it in you. You scribble, powerful, possibly weaponized. Only drink if you have nothing to do tomorrow. As the sun lowers, you pass the bakery. The smell of bread lifts your spirits. You trade a tasting voucher for a warm bun. The baker accepts happily. You think the bakers might be your new best friends. Then disaster. Your last taster of the day hands you a mug with a little too much ceremony. This one, he says, is my masterpiece. You drink. It tastes like firewood and regret. It's sour, but not in a fermented way, in a rotten cabbage way. You suppress a gag. What is this, you ask hoarsely. He grins. I aged it in a sheep's bladder. You stare. Then scribble, sheep bladder is not a barrel. Never again. You return home after dark, your legs heavy. your brain gently spinning. You collapse onto your straw mattress and stare at the beams above your head. Somewhere a dog barks. Somewhere else someone's probably vomiting. You hope it's not because of you. You mutter your evening mantra, "Tomorrow will be better, ale." You don't believe it, but you say it anyway. Morning greets you with a headache shaped like a wagon wheel and the distinct taste of goat in your mouth. You don't remember eating goat, but that doesn't mean you didn't. Your body aches in strange new patterns. Your dreams were full of frothy rivers and exploding barrels. Somewhere in the back of your mind, your liver is filing yet another complaint with central management. Today, the Reeve says you're heading to the southern edge of the village. New brewers popping up, he mutters. Flood of 'em. They smell opportunity. He says this like it's a bad thing. And for you, it is. Your first stop is a low-ceilinged hut where a young brewer named Hal has set up shop. His entire brewing operation is squeezed into one room, the cauldron, the grain sacks, the barrels, and what looks suspiciously like someone's pet duck. Used river barley, Hal says proudly. Washed it myself. You nod slowly. Was it washed before or after it came out of the river? He blinks. Yes, you drink. The ale is cloudy sharp and has the faint tang of fish. You can't prove it, but you suspect the duck has been involved. You scribble suspicious water source. Taste of trout. Caution advised. Hal seems delighted. On word. The second brewer is not a person, but a group 3 sisters, all of whom brew slightly different batches and insist you taste each. One sweet one, bitter one. Herbal. You learn quickly that herbal means possibly poisonous. They sit in a row as you sip and scribble, watching you like a jury at a very small trial. You try to pace yourself, but the effects stack fast. Your cheeks feel warm, your hands are a little too expressive. The sweet batch is syrupy and oddly metallic. The bitter one, decent. The herbal one burns the moment it hits your throat and leaves a vague tingling sensation in your scalp. You nod politely. Lovely variety. Unique finishes. Maybe. Dial back the nightshade. They smile as one. You don't stick around. By the time you reach the next brewer, your head is a foghorn and your stomach is staging a slow-motion rebellion. But you carry on. Because this is your duty. Because people must not drink terrible ale. Because despite the dizziness, this is strangely starting to feel important. Your next brewer is Wolf, an enormous man with 3 teeth and a suspicious smile. His brewing shack is full of smoke. Not warm fire smoke, bitter, acrid, nose-stinging smoke. What's burning? He shrugs. Barrel caught fire, added character. He hands you a mug. The ale inside is pitch black and smells like it's seen war. You sip. It tastes of charcoal, old stew, and something that might once have been a mushroom. Your lips go numb for a second. You scribble tastes like regret. Possibly flammable. Use as paint thinner. Wolf laughs. Best yet, you leave before your eyebrows fall off. In the middle of your route, you stop by the village square to rest. And it's here, amid chickens and cracked cobbles, that you have a small epiphany. You are now the single, most talked-about person in town. As you sip your emergency bread ale, a gift from a brewer who steeped his drink with rye crusts, you hear whispers. That's him, the taster. Did you hear he banned old Ned's batch? Someone said he drinks 16 ales a day. You try not to preen. You fail a little. Historians still argue whether ale tasters were celebrated for their work or merely tolerated until they keeled over. In your case, the line is blurring. You're somewhere between town hero and walking cautionary tale. Your next stop is in a stable because why not, and you're greeted by the brewer, a woman named Linnet, who brews with her husband. She boasts of a special family yeast passed down for generations. You don't ask where it's been stored. You drink. The ale is fine, a little dusty, slightly sour, but not harmful. As you jot down your notes, the husband leans in. We added a special ingredient. You look up, which is apple cores. You frown. Not apples. He shakes his head. Just the cores. Waste not, want not. You write drinkable, slightly fruity, possibly nutritious, definitely compostable. They're thrilled. You're confused, but hydrated. Then comes Marjorie. Marjorie is infamous in the village for brewing medicinal ales. She claims they cure Rash's melancholy and being annoying. You doubt all three. She welcomes you in with a mug already steaming. Not from heat, but from something volatile. The scent is overwhelming, mint wormwood vinegar and ash. You hesitate. She watches. You drink. It's not bad. It's not good either. It tastes like someone dunked a bouquet in a chimney and added wine. You feel better yet, she asks. You nod carefully, much less alive. You write intense, medicinal, might reverse aging or trigger time travel. She grins. You limp away. As the sun begins to drop, you hit one final house. A tidy, cheerful place with a new sign out front. Approved by the ale taster. You blink. You haven't been here yet. The brewer steps out sheepishly. I just assumed you'd like it. You sigh. He pours you a sample. You drink. It's average. Harmless. You say nothing, scribble premature signage. Ale is present and leave without making eye contact. That evening, you collapse onto your bed without removing your boots. The badge has fused permanently to your chest. Your journal is full of bizarre tasting notes. And somewhere outside, someone is singing drunkenly about barley. You sigh. You've become a connoisseur of chaos, and tomorrow you'll do it all again. The sun isn't even up yet, but you are sitting hunched at the edge of your straw-stuffed mattress, staring blankly at the dirt floor. You have the 1,000-yard stare of someone who's seen things. Specifically, things floating in mugs that should not float. You roll your shoulders and wince. Every joint creaks like an old tavern door. Your body feels full of swamp water and bad decisions. Your boots, still damp from yesterday, let out a tiny squish as you stand. That's the soundtrack of your life now, squish-grown belch. Still, there's work to do. You grab your testing kit, the wooden bowl for visual clarity, the small knife for poking at sediment, don't ask, and the prized size measure a wooden stick with faint notches marking the legal minimum foam height. It's warped, slightly sticky, and definitely smells like mushrooms. But it's yours. You tuck it under your arm like a knight with a sword. A very sad, beer-soaked sword. Your first stop today is with Odo, the cooper's brother who's trying his hand at brewing to diversify. His setup is suspiciously clean, which already makes you uneasy. No soot, no rats, no goat nibbling on barley sacks. He proudly offers you a mug and gestures to a large barrel labeled Trial Batch Nutter 6. You sip. It's flat, completely. Not bad, but eerily smooth. Like drinking barley-flavored pond water. You pull out your size measure and dunk it gently into the mug. No foam, not even a bubble. You squint at the stick like it's a divine relic. No head. Does that matter? Odo asks, confused. Yes, legally. According to the Assize of Ale. You explain that a proper ale must produce at least 3 fingers' worth of foam. No foam, it could mean it's watered down or, worse, poorly fermented. Historians still argue whether the assize stick was truly standardized or just a symbolic tool for public shaming. Either way, you wield it like a pro. You scribble flat, decent flavor, foamless. Feels emotionally distant. Odo sighs. Next, you visit a brewer who's gone rogue, Ulf the foam artist. He insists foam is everything, and has constructed a bizarre contraption, a long trough sloped, to test how fast foam travels. You stare at it for a while, wondering if you're awake. He demonstrates with theatrical flair, pouring his ale and pointing to the foam's lively gait down the slope. You taste the ale. It's bitter heavy and somehow carbonated in a way that tickles your gums aggressively. Why is it? Spicy, you ask. Mustard seeds, he says, beaming. For resilience. You write aggressively foamy, possessed of unsettling ambition. Might be alive. You walk a bit to clear your head. Your brain feels sloshy. The village, however, is coming alive. Children dart between stalls. The butcher swats flies. Someone shouting about onions again. You pass a group of laborers, one of whom stops you. Hey, which batch won yesterday? You blink. 1. You know best ale. People are placing bets now. Bets on ale, on your notes. You sigh. This is how reputations begin or collapse. You make your way to a new hut on the edge of town. It's built from rough pine, barely finished, and smells like freshly cut wood and ambition. Inside, a young brewer named Elric offers you his very first batch. He's nervous, sweating. His hands shake as he holds the cup. You sip. It's promising. Not great, but promising. A little sour, a little thin, but made with real effort. You sense honesty in the flavor. You nod. You're onto something. His eyes light up. Really, truly, you say, then pause. Just lose the elderberries. They haunt the finish. You write promising. Thin body. Haunted aftertaste. Shows potential. He bows. You bow back. Our diplomacy is exhausting. Next stop, the infamous brewer called Tilda Two Foams. Her nickname, she explains, comes from her unique double pour method. She claims it layers the foam like a good tunic. You aren't sure what that means, but she pours with great flair, producing 2 thick, frothy layers in one mug. It's beautiful. It also overflows dramatically and soaks your hand. You drink. The ale is strong, nutty, and slightly sweet. Not bad. You check the foam with your measure. 5 fingers high. Technically legal. Possibly dangerous. You note rich, toasty, overzealous foam. Not for amateurs. Served best with a napkin. Tilda cackles. I told you it had presence. Midday hits like a brick. You sit under the shade of a cart and gnaw on a strip of dried meat someone handed you in pity. Your tongue is slightly numb from that last brew. You realize something odd. You've started judging everything with the seriousness of an ale taster. This bread flat finish. This breeze too thin. That goose suspicious legs lacks complexity. You may be losing your mind or evolving. Your final brewer of the day insists on a ceremony. His name is Crispin. He wears a hat made of straw and insists the ale be tasted under the open sky. You sip. It's citrusy, hoppy, modern. He leans in. Used imported hops from Normandy. You stare. That's illegal. Only if you get caught. You write illicit import. Surprisingly crisp, legal gray area. Do not mention to Reeve. He nods solemnly. You leave quietly. That night, as you lie on your back, hands on your stomach, the smell of 20 brews still clinging to your clothes, you whisper softly to the rafters. I used to just drink to relax. Now you drink to survive. You wake to the sound of an argument outside your door. Something about barley weights and accusations of goat theft. You don't get involved. You're too tired, and also, this is just a Tuesday. Today is no ordinary route. The Reeve has handed you a new assignment: inspect the brews of several alewives who've been, let's say, uncooperative. That's code for they think you're full of it. And now you have to earn their trust, ideally, without being hexed. You straighten your tunic, pick up your tools, and sigh. The badge clings to your chest like it's learned shame. First stop Beatrix. You've heard of her. She's been brewing since before you could spell fermentation, and she does not care for authority. Her home is more garden than cottage, with vines crawling up the walls and drying herbs dangling like wind chimes. When you knock, she doesn't answer. She just appears behind you. You yelp. She snorts. You're late, she says, even though you're early. She hands you a mug without breaking eye contact. You taste. It's astonishing. Smooth, slightly sweet, perfectly balanced. No odd floaters. No tang of mold or misery. You start to compliment her, but she cuts you off. I don't need your flattery. Just tell the Reeve to stop sending boys to do a woman's job. You blink. Right. Of course. You scribble, masterful, balanced, would drink again. Possibly terrifying woman. She's already gone. Next, Alice. Younger, newer to the trade, and extremely paranoid. You arrive to find her mid-incantation over a steaming cauldron. She's muttering something about evil eyes and poor yeast. When she sees you, she jumps. I thought you were the constable. You reassure her, no arrests, just a taste. She reluctantly hands over a mug. The ale is decent, slightly tart, heavy on the wild herbs, but drinkable. I brewed it under a full moon, she says, with nettles picked before dawn. You nod like this is completely normal. It has a spiritual finish. She brightens. You think the ancestors approve. You write herbaceous, tangy, possibly druidic. Ghosts undetermined. She clutches your arm. Tell them I meant well. You promise nothing. By midday the air is thick with summer heat. The flies are louder. Your stomach is sloshing. You pause to lean against a cool stone wall and for a brief, glorious moment consider becoming a monk. They have rules, schedules, and clean water. Then you remember monks brew their own ale. You groan and carry on. You reach Hilda's house next. She's what the village calls eccentric. You call it possibly unstable. She brews in a shed shaped like a boot. Literally. It used to be part of a cobbler's shop. You duck to enter. Inside, the air smells like burnt sugar and vinegar. Hilda cackles softly and offers you a pewter cup. It is warm. Too warm. You sip. It burns a little. Not like alcohol, like alchemy. Is this clove, juniper, bit of radish? You write spicy. Strange. surprisingly coherent. Finish lingers like regret. Hilda gives you a ribbon. You don't ask why. You start noticing something. These women, these alewives, don't care for the reeve. Or the law. Or you, frankly. But they do care about the ale. They brew like artists, obsessively, emotionally. And each one, whether using saint's water or hedgerow twigs, has a method. Historians still argue whether alewives were essential community figures or dangerous rule breakers. You suspect they were both. They had power in a world that didn't give them much. So they brewed. And people came to them, even the priest, especially the priest. You arrive next at the home of Matilda the widow. No one calls her that to her face. She welcomes you with a tight smile. Her hands are dusted with flour. She's been baking and brewing. Her ale delicious. A little sour, plenty strong. She says little. You say less. You write robust, sharp, gets to the point, like it's brewer. She nods. No words needed. Your last visit is to Agnes. Yes, that Agnes from day one, the pepper ale menace. She's invited you back, claiming to have refined the recipe. You're scared. Rightfully so. She hands you a mug. You brace yourself. Sip. It's okay. No floating bits, no burning. Still a little spicy, but within reason. You look at her. You toned it down. She shrugs. You were right. It was a bit much. You blink. Is this progress? You write improved. Balanced heat, slight buzz. Redemption arc. Agnes winks. You sit on a stump outside town and exhale deeply. The sky is streaked with clouds. The village hums behind you. And for once, the ale in your belly feels almost welcome. You think about the alewives, the secrets they won't share, the things they do while no one watches. You've learned more from them than from the reeve, the priest, or the menfolk who just want to make money. They brew with memory and spite. You respect that. You tilt your head back and whisper to no one in particular. Best brew yet. You wake to a knock at your door. Not the usual lazy thumping of a brewer with a bucket, but an official knock. Sharp, rhythmic. It feels important and ominous. You shuffle over, creaking like a poorly built wagon. Outside stands the reeve, arms, crossed eyebrows arched. There's been a complaint, he says flatly. You blink. From a brewer. No, he grunts. From the bailiff. Your stomach drops. The bailiff drinks my notes. Apparently he drank something that turned his tongue black. The reeve squints. You approve that batch. You close your eyes. It was probably one of the herbal experiments. Nightshade wormwood, possibly both. The reeve sighs. You're still on the job, but today you're enforcing the assize. We're doing it properly. And with that, he hands you the book, The Assize of Ale, tattered and damp full of rules you've mostly been creatively interpreting. Today, you're not just tasting, you're judging, with consequences. First up, Peter the Measurer. He's been selling his brew by the tankard and charging double the going rate. You show up at his stall, flip open the book, and read aloud. No brewer shall sell ale for more than 1 penny per gallon, unless said ale is found to be of superior quality by the official taster. Amen. Peter scratches his head. It's strong, you sip. It is strong. Too strong. Syrupy, thick tastes like fermented jam. You check your assize stick, foams too high. A frothy mess. You write exceeds limit, overpriced, weaponized. Peter is fined 2 pence and made to return all overcharged coins. He sulks. You nod seriously, though inside you're giggling slightly. You feel powerful. Next, Elena the Smiler. She's been accused of watering down her batches. You arrive at her booth and ask for a mug. She obliges with a too-wide grin. You drink. Yep. It's water with vague barley notes. Your tongue sighs. You pull out the stick. No foam. Not even sadness. Just stillness. You read from the book again. All ale shall be wholesome, and without dilution, else be declared false and fraudulent. She shrugs. It's for the children. You frown. They deserve better. You scribble dishwater. Denied. The Reeve gives her a warning. You suggest a side hustle in soup. Third case of the day is a doozy. Someone's been caught adding foreign fruit to their ale. This is controversial. You find the culprit, Arthur, cheerfully handing out samples of spiced cherry reserve. You taste. It's good. Too good. This isn't legal, you say. It's delicious, he counters. You check the book. There it is. No ale shall be brewed with foreign fruit spice or additive without express license from the market steward. He doesn't have a license. You sigh. Sorry, Arthur. He's fined. He pouts. You take one more sip just to be sure. Midway through the day, things escalate. You're summoned to a tavern where a fight has broken out. 2 men, both furious, both ale-soaked, claim the other has spiked the community barrel. You inspect it. The brew is cloudy. Foamy smells faintly of turnips and fish. You call for a ladle, dip it, and sip carefully. It's revolting, but not fatal. Who brewed this? A teenager raises his hand. It's my first batch. I thought fish bones would enrich it. You stare. Then consult the book. There's nothing about fish bones. But there is a line, no unnatural filth shall enter ale, lest it offend the drinker or Almighty God. You underline filth. The boy is fined. The barrel is dumped. The tavern thanks you with a slice of eel pie. You do not eat it. Later, you find yourself inspecting barrels in the churchyard. Yes, even God's ale must obey the law. The priest, looking sheepish, offers you a sample. It's thin, sharp, clearly stretched with water. Budget's tight, he mumbles. You raise an eyebrow. So's my patience. He smiles weakly. Do I confess now? You shake your head. Only if the next batch is worse. You write watered. Penance required. He nods solemnly and offers you a hard biscuit as a peace offering. You eat it. It breaks a tooth. Then comes the trial of the day, Agnes versus Tilda. They've accused each other of sabotage. Agnes claims Tilda added vinegar to her keg. Tilda says Agnes tampered with her foam. You are the sole judge. You inspect both ales. Sip both. Tilda's is flat sour and smells faintly of envy. Agnes's is frothy and aggressive, but acceptable. You announce your verdict. Both are terrible. They stare. You've both compromised the brew. You're fined equally. And you're banned from insulting each other for 7 days. They grumble. You record sabotage suspected. Bitterness confirmed. Foam is not forgiveness. Evening falls. You're exhausted. Your notes are covered in angry fingerprints. The book is now frayed at the corners and smells like beer and judgment. You return to your hut and collapse, barely kicking off your boots. Today wasn't about taste. It was about truth. And you somehow were the enforcer. Historians still argue whether ale tasters actually had this much power or if it was mostly symbolic. Today, it felt very real. You close your eyes and whisper, "May tomorrow bring fewer vinegar fights." It probably won't. You wake in a hay cart. This is alarming mostly because you don't remember getting in it. You sit up slowly. The cart creaks. A chicken squawks indignantly and hops off your lap. Your tongue is dry, your head pulses in time with the chirping of the birds, and someone nearby is laughing. You turn. It's Tom, the gossip. "You went too hard on the nettle batch," he says. Passed out halfway through a song about barley. Very moving performance, though. You groan. Last night's village gathering was meant to be a celebration. A few mugs a dance or two, perhaps a gentle toast to the gods of fermentation. Instead, your official taster-supposed role model apparently became the entertainment. You retrieve your badge, which is now tied to a goat's horn. The goat looks smug. Back at home, you rinse your face with well water, ignore the risk of cholera, and gather yourself. The reeve hasn't called for you yet, which means one thing. Today's your own fault. Your notes collected in a leather folio show a pattern. Every few days, your sampling sessions lean from scientific to enthusiastic. You remember the case of Giles, your predecessor, who reportedly once drank an entire barrel to confirm consistency. Consistency. Right. You sit down and write a new rule for yourself. No more than 5 sips per hour. It won't work. But you write it anyway. You begin the day by checking on the new brews at the Inn the Goose and Ladle. It's run by a pair of twins who seem incapable of blinking. You've never trusted them. They offer you a tall mug filled to the rim with golden ale, topped by a glorious, dense head of foam. You admire the work. Then, like a true professional, you take a single sip. It's excellent. Crisp, clean, low sediment, slight honey. Finish, you declare. They beam. Then hand you 3 more samples. You sigh. By a third stop, Tanner Rob's back shed, you're already feeling the buzz. Rob has brewed what he calls winter ale, despite it being midsummer. It's dark, thick smells like cinnamon and bad decisions. You take a sip. It's interesting, spicy heavy, and leaves a coating on your tongue like oil. What's in it, you ask? Beets. You blink. Why? Color. You check the foam. A bit much, nearly over the legal limit. You remind him about the assize. Rob nods solemnly. Next time, less beet. You write colorful, viscous, causes introspection, may stain furniture. As you make your way through town, people start greeting you with exaggerated bows. A boy salutes. Someone calls out, "Don't drink too much this time." You try to smile, but shame is bubbling up in your belly alongside everything else. Because last night something did happen. Something you barely remember. There was a moment. You were on a bench. Someone asked your opinion about 2 ales. You answered. Then stood on the bench, raised your mug, and declared that one of them tasted like betrayal soaked in rainwater. They wrote that down as gospel. And now that brewer can't sell a mug without someone quoting you. You realize you've become more than just a taster. You've become a critic. Terrifying. At midday, you pause behind the blacksmith's forge to sober up with a heel of bread and a mug of water. The blacksmith passes by and mutters, "Don't drink that." You spit it out instinctively. River's backed up, he says, shrugging. "Stick to ale." Right. That's how this whole job started. Water is risky. Ale is safety, mostly. Historians still argue whether ale truly kept people healthier or if they simply died slower while mildly buzzed. You wipe your mouth and move on. Your next appointment is a personal request the priest again. He wants a proper assessment of his new sacramental brew. Something to make the sermons feel shorter, he jokes. You taste it. It's very sweet, barely fermented. Tastes like someone tried to make wine but stopped halfway through and added raisins. You suggest he label it as beginner's ale. He frowns. Does it have a holy finish? You tilt your head. It's forgiving. You write gentle, unintimidating. Tastes like childhood. Needs conviction. He accepts the verdict with grace and presses a small loaf of barley bread into your hand. Bless him. By afternoon, you find yourself at the edge of the woods inspecting a brew from an outlier, a man named Tomlin who lives alone, brews in silence and never blinks. You suspect he was born in a barrel. His ale is different. Smoky, earthy, full of tannins and mystery. You used roots, you ask. He nods. From under the hawthorn tree, you stare at him. He stares back. You write rooted. Strange, possibly enchanted. Drink near open flames only. He nods, once disappears into the woods. You make a note to never visit again after dark. At the day's end, the reeve finds you near the well. He sniffs, you raises an eyebrow. You sober, define sober. You reply. He sighs. We've received another complaint. Someone says you are seen dancing with a mug on your head. You clear your throat. Is that illegal? No, he says, but deeply unsettling. You nod. He hands you a small pouch. Your week's payment. Inside, 6 coins, 1 sprig of mint, and a note that reads, "Please drink less. Everyone." You sit on your doorstep, open the pouch, and chew the mint slowly. You've survived another round of duty, dignity, and disaster, but barely. You awaken flat on your back in your own bed, which is already an improvement. No hay cart, no goat, no new and disturbing herbal brews fermenting in your stomach. Just a quiet morning, a stiff spine, and the sound of someone knocking at your shutters. It's the reeve. Again, this time, he's not alone. With him stands a tall, grim man with a leather ledger and a hat far too fine for this village. You instinctively sit straighter. Something official is happening. This is Master Cedric, the reeve mutters. Town clerk from the borough. Cedric doesn't smile. We're conducting an audit. You blink. Of me. No, of the entire ale system. You're just the mouthpiece. You nod slowly. How flattering. He opens his ledger. Today I'll accompany you to ensure standards are being maintained. Logbooks must match foam, must measure, and samples must be documented. You glance at the reeve. He's already walking away. Cedric frowns. Let's begin. First up, Matilda the widow. You groan softly inside. Not because her ale is bad, it's excellent, but because she has opinions. You arrive. She's already pouring. Cedric pulls out a small copper disc and begins measuring temperature. By borough standards, he says ale must remain within a range of 52 to 58 degrees at point of sale. Matilda snorts. This ain't wine fancy boots. You sip. Still rich. Still balanced. You measure the foam. 3 fingers, perfect. You record ideal consistency. Acceptable warmth. Subject maintains eye contact like a hawk. Cedric says nothing but scribbles furiously. Next, Hal, the hopeful brewer. His setup is cleaner now. He's added signage. Try the trout-free ale, it reads. Cedric frowns immediately. Marketing language must not include misleading claims. You hold up a hand. He's just joking. Cedric stares. Ale is not a joke. You taste. It's improved, less fishy, more neutral. But neutral's a win. You write safe, drinkable, unambitious, possibly cured of aquatic issues. Cedric makes a note. Brewer lacks proper foam stick. You lend Hal yours. He beams. Cedric frowns harder. At the third house, Joan of the slaughterhouse, you hit a wall. Her ale is the same strange peppery mix from earlier days. You sip, smile politely. Try not to blink too much. Cedric gags. This is unfit. Joan raises a cleaver. You're unfit. Things escalate. You intervene. Joan's ale is a specialized brew. Somewhat intense, but not unsafe. Cedric demands a chemical analysis. You remind him this is the 1300s. You write controversial profile, appeals to specific tastes, not technically a weapon. He concedes. Barely. Around noon you reach the Tavern of the Goose. Cedric is appalled. This establishment has no uniform pricing. You shrug. They charge less for the stuff they know is bad. He flips through the book. That's not how the assize works. You try the day's offering. It's spiced too warm and thin, but not vile. You record barely passable. House policy includes honesty, if not quality. Cedric huffs. This entire system is chaos. You smile. That's the point. In the afternoon, you visit a new brewer, Wenna, who brews near the river with a makeshift still and 3 hives of bees. Cedric recoils at the smell. This is unregulated honey production. Wenna offers you a cup. You sip. It's gorgeous. Sweet, floral, bubbly in a way that almost tickles. You blink. This is exceptional. Cedric sips. His eyebrows rise. For a second, he's human. You write revolutionary. Be forward. Foam delicate as spring mist. He clears his throat. Still unconventional. You nod, unforgettably so. Next you meet with Ulf, the foam fanatic. Ulf greets you with charts, diagrams, and a short lecture on bubble integrity. Cedric seems both baffled and impressed. You taste the latest batch. It's still spicy, still far too lively, but undeniably well made. Cedric frowns. Too experimental. You argue. That's what moves the craft forward. You write ambitious, may attack palate, technically legal. Cedric mutters something about barbarian science. Evening draws close and Cedric's energy wanes. His hat droops. His notes multiply. He's seen the wild heart of village ale, and it scarred him. At the final stop, Edith's small stall, he barely blinks as she pours. You taste. Still humble. Still fine. You write reliable. Clean. Comforting. A brewer who listens. Cedric nods slowly. As you sit beside the well, Cedric closes his ledger with a sigh. You enforce these laws alone. You nod. He hesitates. There's a certain art to it. You smile. Ale is art. Terrible art. With foam. He looks at you long and serious. You're not what I expected. You wipe foam off your chin. That's how I stay employed. He stands, hesitates, then hands you a sealed scroll. An official commendation. For service under questionable conditions. You open it. Inside may the foam be ever in your favor. He's gone before you can laugh. You wake with the commendation still clenched in your hand. The scroll's seal is now flattened under your face, and you've drooled on part of the parchment. A fitting end to yesterday's audit. You sit up slowly, still half dreaming about B-ale and Cedric's stunned expression when Ulf explained bubblometric ratios. But there's no rest for the inebriated. Today is market day, and with it comes a tidal wave of fresh Brews village gossip, and unfortunately, your public. By the time you reach the village square, it's already humming with activity. Chickens dart beneath carts, pigs root near the barrel stands, and someone's playing a bone flute near the bakery. More importantly, there are new brewers. Temporary stalls, wide-eyed villagers hoping to strike it rich or at least mildly buzzed. You groan softly. 10 new barrels, the reeve says, slapping your back. And a crowd that wants to see the taster at work. Of course they do. First stall a couple from 2 villages over. They've brought a batch labeled Spring Glory. The label is decorative pressed flowers glued to the side of the barrel. You take a sip. It's floral, sweet, and oddly fizzy. You suspect alchemy. You check your foam stick. 4 fingers. Too high. You raise an eyebrow. The woman nods. We like our foam. Assertive. You write lovely nose. Illegally joyful bubbles. Investigate carbonation source. They take a bow. You try to disappear into the crowd. Next up, a man who calls himself Barley Jim. He has a beard so long it might contain its own yeast colony. His ale is beige. That's the only word for it. No smell, no flavor, just beige. You sip, nothing happens. You could drink a gallon and forget you ever had it. You write utterly inoffensive, like drinking a shrug, possibly brewed with socks. He nods solemnly. That's the goal. The 3rd stall offers festival ale. You take a sip and your mouth goes numb. What's in this, you gasp? Cloves, sage, a touch of tree bark. Cedric would faint. You write intense. Palate annihilator. Pair with medical advice. You down water, or you try. It's wine. Someone swapped your cup. You're losing control of the day. You make it halfway down the row before chaos strikes. A barrel explodes. Not violently, just enough pressure for the top to blow off and foam to rocket into the air like a celebratory disaster. Children cheer. The reeve sighs. You taste the splatter on your cheek. Too much fermentation. The brewer, an elderly man with no teeth, shouts. That's flavor escaping. You write lively, dangerous. Consult a Cooper. You manage 3 more stalls. Rhubarb brew. Tastes like a mistake wrapped in leaves. Fruity. Sharp. Emotionally confusing. Smoked ale. Tastes like licking a chimney. Bold. Charcoal forward. Requires emotional support. Minty blonde. Like chewing ale-flavored toothpaste. Fresh. Possibly cursed. Refreshing if misused. You stop to breathe. A goose waddles past with someone's hat in its mouth. You spot a familiar face, Tom. He's holding a mug and grinning. Which one's the best, he asks. You consider lying, but you hand him a cup of the least offensive option, Edith's quiet, calm ale. He sips, nods. Steady hands, that one, he says. We're all talking about her now. You blink. Word travels fast, and your notes apparently now shape trade. You're not just the taster. You're a one-man economy. Back at the square, someone singing a song about the man who tasted too much. You're fairly sure you're the subject. You sneak away. Behind the bakery, you find a bit of peace and a crust of still warm bread. You chew slowly, surrounded by the comforting smell of yeast and ash. Then you hear it, two brewers arguing. She bribed the taster. He liked mine better. You added cherries. You sigh and step in. Enough, you say, mouth full of crust. You both lose points for desperation. They fall silent. You write disqualified. Poor sportsmanship. Cherries unconfirmed. That evening the reeve finds you in your hut. You survived market day, he says. You grunt. Barely. He sets a small token on your table, a carved wooden cup. Burned into its side is a crude image of a frothy mug and a face that looks suspiciously like yours. They're calling it the taster's toast. Selling fast. You stare at it. You've become a brand. You close your eyes. I just wanted a quiet drink. The reeve leaves laughing. You stare at the cup. You'll never drink from it. But you keep it on the shelf, right next to the badge that started it all. You wake to rain. Gentle, steady, unbothered rain, the kind that taps the roof like it's trying to lull the house back to sleep. For once, you're tempted to listen. But the village doesn't pause for weather, especially not for the ale taster. Outside puddles are already forming in the square. Children splash barefoot through them, giggling as their mothers shout half-hearted warnings. The air smells like wet straw, chimney smoke, and something faintly sour fermentation in the rain. You pull your cloak tight, grab your satchel of tasting tools, and trudge out into the morning. Today's route takes you toward the outer fields where brewers with more land but less reputation operate. You're told a few of them have been getting experimental. That always ends well. First stop a tent. Yes, a tent. Draped in oilcloth, tethered with twine and optimism. The brewer, a young man named Perkin, greets you with the enthusiasm of someone who's never failed hard enough yet to fear it. He pours a mug with trembling hands. It's oat-based, he says proudly. No barley at all. You blink. Is it still ale? He shrugs. Legally adjacent. You taste. It's creamy, oddly smooth, but also faintly dusty. You write unconventional, silky. Tastes like someone fermented breakfast. He beams. That's the goal. You move on before your stomach realizes what just happened. Next, a farm brewer named Elswith, who greets you with a sheep under one arm and a ladle in the other. I brew in the stable, she says matter of fact. You nod. Naturally, the ale she hands you is lukewarm and pale. You sip. It's thin, barely fermented, and smells faintly of hay. She watches your face carefully. Thoughts. You pause. Did you use well water? She nods. And mint from the trough. You cough delicately. That tracks. You write minty, muddled, hydrating in the most alarming way. She shrugs. The sheep like it. You take her word for it. By mid-morning the rain is heavier, and your tunic clings to you like a second colder skin. You duck under an awning and are invited inside by an older brewer named Ernold. He says little, just hands you a mug and waits. You sip. It's excellent. Dark, rich, layered. Notes of toast, maybe even coffee, though you're not sure how. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Charred barley. By accident. You nod. Accidents are often delicious. You write depth, complexity, warmth. Brewed by a man who doesn't need compliments. He nods once and goes back to stirring. At your next stop, you encounter trouble. A local boy, No more than 12 has set up a brewery in his uncle's cart. He's selling ale made from soaked bread apples, and he whispers this a secret herb. You try to say no, but the crowd is watching. And they're chanting, "Taste it, taste it." You give in. You sip. It's awful. It's fizzy sour and sticky. Your teeth instantly regret existing. What's the herb, you ask, through clenched jaw? He grins. Mint and nettles and lard. You blink. Why lard? For mouth feel. You write never again. Ban this child from all barrels. The crowd cheers anyway. You dry off briefly in the smithy's shed. He hands you a warm cloth and a very small beer. Not for rating, he says. Just mercy. You sip. It's humble, almost nothing. But somehow it's the best taste all day. You thank him with your eyes. Back in the rain, you're summoned to a more serious matter, a sick villager. The rumor, bad ale. You arrive at a small house near the edge of town. Inside, a woman lies curled under a heap of wool. Her husband gestures toward a half-empty mug on the table. I bought it this morning, from the man with the green cart. You sniff it. It reeks of vinegar and mold. You don't taste. You write spoiled, unfit. Possible cause of nausea, vomiting, and divorce. The reeve who's arrived behind you orders the cart pulled from the market. This is your least favorite part of the job, when Ale stops being funny and starts being dangerous. Historians still argue whether contaminated ale caused actual plagues or just coincided with them. You're not here to settle that. But you do know the smell of poison, and this was too close. You continue more sober now than you've felt all week. The next brewer is an old friend, Big Martin. He hands you a mug without words. You sip, golden, toasty sweet at the finish. You smile. Consistent as always. He raises a brow. You okay? You nod. He pours you a second. You decline. He frowns. Now I'm worried. You laugh right reliable. Anchoring, a rare point of sanity, and pat his arm. Your final stop is to an alley brewer. No sign, no stall. Just a barrel tucked behind the cooper's hut, and a man who goes by Red. He hands you a tin cup with one word, sip. You do. It's confusing. Salty. Slightly smoky. A bit of vinegar. There's a second taste. You can't identify fish. You look at him. Sue said herring, he says proudly. You gag. You write unholy. Savory. Reconsider your life. He laughs like a drain pipe gargling gravel. You return home soaked, shivering, but grateful to be upright. Rain drums on the thatch. You light a candle. Your scroll of tasting notes grows heavier with ink and secrets. You stretch out, breathing the smell of old wood and soaked parchment, and whisper just a few more days. You wake in silence, no bells, no shouting, no knocks from the reeve demanding you investigate yet another brew crafted from moss vinegar and a desperate sense of experimentation. It's unnerving. You sit up slowly. Your joints still sound like dry branches underfoot, but the morning air is cool and quiet. That should comfort you. Instead, it unsettles you. Then comes the knock. It's not frantic, not loud, just 3 deliberate taps. You open the door. It's Elric, the young brewer with the elderberry problem. He looks shaken. Someone died, he says. It takes you a moment to process that. Ale tasting is, after all, a job you've jokingly referred to as dangerous, but today it's not a joke. The man's name was Den, a regular drinker. He bought a mug from a roadside stall 2 days ago. Fell ill that night. Fever, vomiting, skin blotches. Died by dawn. Elric swallows. I think it was mine. You stare at him. I reused a cask from someone else. I didn't clean it properly. I thought boiling the ale woody trails off. You take a slow breath. Show me. You follow him to his brew shed. The moment you step inside, you smell it, rot vinegar, something faintly sulphurous. The barrel is cracked at the rim. Its metal bands are rusted. The tap is sticky. You inspect the interior with your knife. There's mold lining the base, black and green and clinging like guilt. You've tasted some questionable things in your time, but this is poison. Historians still argue whether contaminated ale was a common cause of death in the Middle Ages or just a frequent scapegoat for larger public health issues. But standing here, inhaling this stench, you can confirm this batch would kill a man. Elric slumps against the wall, silent. You don't scold him. He's already broken. And truthfully, this could have happened to any of them. Brewing is messy. Conditions are filthy. Knowledge is passed in whispers, not textbooks. You walk out, fetch the reeve, and show him. He nods, jaw tight. We'll burn the barrel. And Elric, the reeve sighs. We need ale, but he doesn't brew for a month. Let the town forget. You agree. Quiet justice. It's not perfect, but it's what passes for balance here. Word spreads fast. By midday the square is buzzing, not with cheer, but with quiet fear. You walk through it like a ghost. The children who used to salute now stare. The brewers lower their eyes. You're not just the taster anymore. You're the one who let someone die. You try to remind yourself you never tasted that batch. You never approved it. You couldn't have known. But guilt brews deeper than hops. At the Goose and Ladle, the barkeep greets you with unusual formality. Everything tested twice, he says. And we boiled the mugs. Just to be safe. You nod. You taste. It's fine. Good even. But you don't enjoy it. You write clean, responsible, burdened. You visit Martin next. He doesn't speak, just hands you a wooden stool and a mug, then goes back to stirring his cauldron. You sip. It's warm, familiar, a little thinner than usual. You scribble your notes in silence. Eventually, Martin says, "It wasn't your fault." You nod once. I know. But you don't believe it. The priest calls for you. His latest brew, technically for ritual use only, is ready. He pours it in silence, watching your face. You taste. Light thin, not unpleasant. Like holy water that went to finishing school. He says we're reminded in moments like these that even sacred things can spoil. You nod. He leans forward. Be careful. They trust you. You don't respond. You just write subtle, sacred, possibly prophetic. At sunset, the reeve finds you sitting by the well. He hands you a folded paper. Inside, a report from the scribe. Cause of death listed as unknown but suspected ale contamination. He says you weren't blamed, not officially. You nod. He hesitates. Still want the job. You look at him then, at your foam stick lying on the stone beside you. The notches are worn smooth. Your notebook is half full. Your boots are permanently damp. You take a long breath. Yes, because someone has to. That night your dreams are thick and bitter. Faces in foam, names in barley. That boy's grin as he handed you a tin cup full of regret. You wake in the dark and whisper, "I'm still here." The village sleeps on. Tomorrow you'll taste again, but not tonight. Tonight you remember. You wake before dawn as always, but this morning you lie still a little longer. The room is cold. Your breath clouds in the air. Outside, someone is shouting about sheep in the turnip patch, and a rooster is crowing like it's auditioning for a cathedral bell tower. But you don't move. You think of Den, the poisoned mug, Elric's ruined cask, the smell of rot that still clings to your cloak. You get up anyway. You always do. Your path today takes you to the far east fields beyond the edge of the market stalls, past the last cooper's hut, into the places where fences stop and wild hedgerows begin. Few brew out here. Fewer still sell what they make. The Reeve sent you with no note, just a nod and the words, "Time you saw everything." You walk alone for a while. The grass is wet, the sky is grey. Your thoughts move slow and sour like unfinished wort. You arrive at the cottage of Aldwyn. He doesn't wave or smile, just opens the door and nods toward a bench. You sit. He pours. No labels, no pitch, no false cheer. You sip. It's bitter. Very bitter. Dry as firewood, strong as regret. You feel it warm your throat, and for once that warmth feels earned. He says nothing. Neither do you. You write bitter, honest, no illusions. Good. You hand it to him. He nods. That's all. Back in town you pass Edith's stall. She's wiping mugs with clean cloth, lining up casks like little soldiers. She offers you a cup, eyes bright. You taste. Still perfect. Maybe better. You smile. You're ready. She blushes. You say that every week. You shake your head. This time I mean it. You write reliable. Balanced. Town's quiet pride. She tears a piece from her bread roll and hands it to you. It's still warm. You carry it with both hands. In the square, a crowd is gathering. A young lad barely old enough to shave is pacing beside a cask and shouting about a new kind of ale. You approach. He thrusts a mug at you like it's a sword. Taste this. You do. It's strange. Tart. Effervescent. Smells of summer grass and fermenting apples. What's in it? Wild yeast, he says proudly. And elderflower. And maybe some mistakes. You chuckle. You write chaotic. Lively, unexpectedly cheerful. Possible career ahead. The boy beams like a lantern. At the tavern they've renamed the house Brew. You read the new placard, Taster's Choice. You stare. You don't remember approving this. Inside the barkeep shrugs. It sells. You sip. It's fine. It's not yours. You write acceptable. Slightly flatter than advertised. You don't stop the name. You just walk away. Later, the priest finds you. He sits beside you on the well, silent for a while. Then you look older. You nod. I feel older. He claps your shoulder. That's the price of taste. You frown. No one told me that. He smiles. They never do. You walk to the edge of the village to where the forest begins. You need air. You sip from a flask, Martin's latest. Earthy, solid. You didn't write notes this time, just carried it. There's peace here, away from the mugs and rules and foam. A few birds call. The wind smells like pine and drying hops. You breathe deep. Back home, you light a candle and sit with your notebook. You flip through pages. Your handwriting, once neat, is now a chaos of scribbles and stains. Every line tells a story. Some are jokes. Some are warnings. Some are just the word "no" written 5 times. You reach the first page. Day 1 ale tastes like regret and warmth. You close the book. That night there's a knock. You open the door. It's Elric. He holds a mug. "I brewed again," he says quietly. "Clean barrel. New start." You hesitate, then nod. You drink. It's simple, honest, not perfect, but full of care. You write redemption. Real. You hand him the note. He doesn't cry, but he looks close. He leaves in silence. You sit by the fire, the candle flickering low. Your badge lies on the table. Your stick leans against the wall. Your ledger is full, and your hands are still. For once, no one needs you. You look out at the stars. Tomorrow you'll choose whether to continue or to pass the badge on. You've earned that choice. But for tonight, you rest. The rooster crows again like it always does, too early and too smug. But you're already awake. You didn't sleep much. Not because of nightmares, though you've had plenty, but because you knew what today was. Your last round. You told yourself last night that you'd decide in the morning whether to keep tasting or finally hang up the badge. But the truth is, you decided days ago. You just needed one more sunrise to make it feel real. You get dressed slowly. Not out of pain or fatigue, though they're both there, but out of ceremony. This is ritual now. One final route, one last cup. You sling your satchel over your shoulder. Inside the stick, the notebook, the tools of your strange and fermented trade. The badge stays on the table. Let it. Your first visit is to a girl named Tansy, new brewer, her first ever batch. She hands you a cup with both hands, trembling slightly. "I tried," she whispers. You sip. It's sweet, too sweet, thin, but full of hope. You taste nervousness and kindness and someone who's watched a lot and finally wanted to try. You nod. "It's not bad." She beams. You write soft, kind-hearted, a beginning. You hand her the note and keep walking. Next, Tom. Yes, that Tom. The gossip, the loudmouth, the accidental philosopher. He's brewed something, just to say I did. You raise your eyebrows. He shrugs. Used bread and honey and wine. Maybe not in that order. You sip. It's terrible, but also somehow funny. You laugh. He laughs. You write horrifying, but spirited, best left to stories. He claps your back. You move on. Martin. Of course. You don't even speak. He pours. You drink. It's the same as always, and better than anything else. You write steady, deep, a farewell in flavor. He reads it, nods once, doesn't speak. No need. You visit Edith last. She's ready. She knows. "I heard," she says softly, "that you're stepping down." You don't answer. You just hold out your hand. She gives you the cup. You taste, and it's perfect. Foam 3 fingers. Color rich amber. Mouthfeel clean. Aftertaste soft and warm like dusk. You write, "It's yours now." She reads it, blinks fast. You smile, then hand her the stick. She takes it. You both know what that means. You walk back through the village for the last time as the taster. You pass stalls. People wave. No one asks you to taste anything. They just nod. 1 or 2 press small things into your hand. Bread herbs, a carved whistle. You say thank you. Quietly. At home, you sit on the bench outside your door. You take one final sip from the cup you poured for yourself this morning. It's nothing special. Half warm, slightly flat, but you close your eyes and enjoy it anyway. Your work is done. Let someone else handle the foam now. The candlelight is low now, flickering softly on the wooden walls of your little cottage. The fire has shrunk to a sleepy glow, warm enough to take the edge off the night. You sit with your hands resting in your lap, the final page of your tasting ledger lying open beside you. Outside, the village is quiet. The stalls are packed away. The brewers have gone home. The barrels are sealed until tomorrow. Only the occasional sigh of wind breaks the silence, and even that feels gentle, like the village itself is exhaling after a long day. You lean back and close your eyes. Your limbs are heavy, but not with weariness. It's a different kind of weight now, the kind that comes at the end of something meaningful. You've served, you've judged, you've tasted, you've endured the worst of brews and the best of people. The smell of ale still lingers on your clothes, but even that feels softer tonight. Familiar. Like an old friend you're finally ready to part with. Maybe you'll sleep in tomorrow, or maybe you'll just sit on the bench and listen. You don't need to sip anything to know what this village is anymore. You've tasted it all. Now let it rest. Let yourself rest. The world is quiet now. Let it stay that way. Good night.